Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, of course, depending upon where you are in the world. Welcome, everyone, to the inaugural session of the Empowerment Sessions Unfiltered. This morning, I would like to start off by, first of all, thanking all of my wonderful, beautiful friends here who have joined me, my guests, Kaki Lee, Georgina Morshdy, and Monique Alvarez. Welcome, ladies. Thank you so much for being here and for taking part in this.
Thank you for having us, Brad. This is exciting.
Yeah.
It is. I felt like a little kid on Christmas morning when I woke up this morning. It's like, I cannot wait to jump in and get started with this whole thing. It's so exciting. And I'm just so happy to be here and so happy to have you ladies here to start this session off, the very first Empowerment Sessions Unfiltered. I also want to say thank you to all of you who are tuning in live. Please comment below with #live if you're here catching us live. If you're catching this on the replay, please comment below with #replay. But thank you all for tuning in from wherever you're watching from. This is going to be a wonderful, powerful, great conversation. And I'm really excited to get started here. I want to start off with a little housekeeping. So I'll explain to you the whole point of these empowerment sessions was to start building and creating conversation. I think that we've gotten to a point today in today's day and age where we don't talk about things, or we're scared to talk about certain topics, or certain topics are off limits. People won't talk about them. And this container is exactly what this is about, is creating a safe space where we can all talk about things that people are too scared to talk about, or don't want to talk about, or feel that they're taboo topics. And this place, this space, this container is a space for exactly that to happen, because I think that once we start talking about things, this is how we start to make change in the world. So let's start having those real, raw, authentic conversations and talk about these things. No one has to ram their opinion down anyone's throat. We are here just to talk, converse, and who knows, maybe we will open the minds of people watching. Maybe we'll even open the minds of each other who are partaking in the actual session that we're talking about. So today's session, we're going to be talking about the power of community. Now, I would like to start by saying thank you again for you three to be here, and for supporting my crazy idea of these empowerment sessions and jumping on board and saying yes. I mean, you ladies said yes right away. There wasn't even any hesitation from any of you. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. And I'm just happy to be kicking it off with the three of you. But I want to point out a couple of very interesting facts here too, before we get started. And it's funny that we decided to, between the four of us, choose the topic of the power of community, because we all came together through the power of community. The four of us didn't know each other, and we were brought together by Monique's community, and we've all become friends, and it's extended far beyond community. We are all friends. We talk outside of the community, and we connect with each other and share, and it's just a beautiful thing, and it's so synchronistic. How do you say it? The synchronicity of it is beautiful. I also want to point out, though, too, that there are the four of us here. We are currently sitting in 4 different countries on 3 different continents. So they're again enforcing the power of community. Like, where, who would have thought 4 people in 4 different countries on 3 different continents have come together to start conversation? How powerful is that when you think about that? It's huge, right? So with all of this being said, I wanted to start this conversation off by saying that the past 2.5 years, we have all gotten fairly good, I would say, at community and being part of a community in the online space, right? We've been kind of forced to do that because of what's gone on in the world. So it's been forced upon us, but I think we've all started to get pretty good at community and building community. But how do we start to, and I want to start this off by posing this question, is how do we start to move that into real life? How do we get back to community? Because the four of us have spoken previously about this topic. We've spoken about this topic many times, but we talked about specifically how community has been lost in real life. Like, people don't even know their own neighbors. So my question to start this off is, how do we get back to that? Because when we were growing up, community was everything. So how do we get back to that? How do we transfer that off into real life, do you think? Anyone want to jump in and start?
Good morning. So it feels like because we've gone so far in the other direction and we're at sort of everyone in their own cave, I think we have to start with small steps. Do we even gather with the people that we live with? Do we eat meals together? Do we have conversations with the computer and the laptops and the iPads and the phones in the drawer? I think that's the first step, because I remember I was talking with someone in 2020 and they said, this is the year I realized I've been so obsessed about what I eat. This person was like particularly healthy, and I get it. Like I'm one of those. But she said, I figured out it's not just about what I eat, but it's who I eat it with. So who are we having our meals with? Are we having our meals with Zoom and a desk and our pen and paper and our phone? Or are we having meals with the people we love? I think like we have to look at what's happening in our own house before we can even go like think about introducing ourselves to our neighbor or meeting the farmer who grows our food, or a lot of other things that I hope we get to. So that's what I feel like is the first good step.
Yeah. Anyone else want to chime in?
Yeah, it's funny because I was having a conversation today at my daughter's friend's birthday party with the other mums, and just talking about getting help from people that are our friends is hard enough. So I really think Monique has a really good point, just to start off with, the people that are around us, because we can't even, it's not even like a normal thought to be able to ask for help from someone that is even a close friend, because I struggle with that as well. Growing up, community is family for me, whereas like, I was taught, maybe as an Asian thing, I don't know, that you kind of a bit wary of people outside. So for me, it's actually a big step to ask for help from people outside of my family. Yeah,
I think Kaki raised a really important point there, and I think a lot of us, we've become so individualistic and focused so much on the individual that's kind of severed us from the ties and the community connections and like the village community that humans really thrive in. And it's really sad, isn't it? Because you're not alone in saying, actually, it's really hard to ask for help. Like, how many times do we just not, because we need to look like we're self-sufficient and we need to look like we're strong, we've got it all together, and we don't want people to know maybe we're struggling. But actually, there's so much power and like love in supporting each other and helping each other. So I think we've really got to figure out how to get back to this place where we don't just live in these separate boxes, separate from each other. And Monique, you're right, it's got to start in our own homes. But then remembering how powerful we are when we're in community. Like, alone we can do so little, but together we can do so much. I'm sure there's someone said that. That's not my not my words. That is such a powerful like mantra to remember, that coming together.
For sure.
That in itself is a force for change.
Well, Monique talks about this all the time. Like, this is her thing. It's like, we're not meant to do life alone. We're not meant to do entrepreneurship alone. It's a huge thing, but that's a problem too, is asking for help, because we've been so conditioned to not ask for help that it's a sign of weakness or it's a sign of shame when you ask for help. And that's not the way it should be. That's what community is about: leaning on each other, supporting one another. I wholeheartedly believe that we are brought here and put on this earth to support one another and help one another. It's community. That's what it's all about.
Now, Brad, I think a great question to ask ourselves is, why don't we ask for help? So we know it's hard, but why specifically, right? Kaki pointed out, for her, it was like she was kind of taught not to. Like, we don't do that, right? Don't look outside. And I think she brings up a great point. Like, do we teach our kids to fear strangers? Do we tell our kids don't talk to strangers? Like, it starts there. These are seeds of it, right? I remember the first time my boys, they spent the first 5 years of their life overseas, and we came back to the US, and I heard someone telling them at the park, oh, no, don't talk to strangers. I said, no, don't teach my kids that. I don't do not put that in their head. There are no strangers. Why would I put in my kid's head that you don't interact and speak with everyone. You don't look people in the face and answer them when they speak to you. Why would I say certain people we don't engage with and certain people we do? Why would I put that in their head? Right. And I think it starts there. It's like, you can't, that means I'm telling my boys, you can't trust people.
Yeah.
You can't, you're not meant to engage. You're meant to shut yourself off. Right. So like, what does it mean when we ask for help? I remember one time when I asked myself this question, the answer that immediately came was, if I was smart enough, I could figure it out. I could figure it out on my own if I was smart enough. And so that was, if I went and asked you for help, I was admitting that I wasn't smart enough to figure it out. And like, somehow that was going to bring my whole world crashing down, right? Because I needed everyone to think I was smart enough to figure it out.
Yeah.
Yep, that's me.
It's so interesting. It's so interesting when you say about, teaching children not to talk to strangers. And obviously there is a consideration there. But for example, on things like we just had Halloween, like how many people allowed their children to go and knock on strangers' doors to get candy? No, it's strange, isn't it? We have on the one hand, it's like, stay away. But on the other hand, oh, but today you can go and knock on anybody's door. As long as it's
that
pumpkin
one day
outside.
a year, right?
One day a year you can do that. And so it's a shame that we have kind of bred this society of mistrust. And I think as well that sometimes I don't ask for help because I don't want to look like I can't do it, but also it's like I don't want to be a burden to other people. And I think also it can sometimes feel very transactional as well. It's like, oh, well, I expect something in return, or because now I've helped you, I'm in debt to you, because a lot of our relationships are transactional rather than relational. And so I think that's a consideration as well. We want to be thinking about, how do we want to be in community with each other? Has there always got to be a return? Can it be more of a pay it forward agreement rather than now you owe me? And I think that would be a really interesting way to explore how we can share our skills and share our work and work together.
Yeah.
I don't know. For me, I'm starting to get over that hump and learning to ask for help. But for me, it's so much easier to offer my help. I will help anybody I can. I will do anything to help anybody. And that makes me feel incredible. But it's a bigger hurdle to jump over and say, I need help. Can you help me? Because I think part of it is fear of rejection. Part of it is, again, as I mentioned, it's the whole stigma of shame around it and admitting that you need help. And women have had to deal with this for fucking ever, because women are just conditioned that you do everything and you don't ask for help. So there's a whole other angle to this where I think it's even harder for women to ask for help as opposed to men. Would you agree?
That's interesting. I'm not sure if I agree. Honestly,
Okay.
I do think, especially once I became a mother, it was just like expected, like, oh, and here's a whole new list of things. We've got to put it together, a PDF for you. You now must do all these things. Congratulations. But I'm not sure it's easier for men to ask for help. I wonder about that, actually, right? I mean, I noticed that with my dad and my husband, my brother, right? So I'm in a world full of men. I'm the only female in my world. And this is actually something that I have begun to do, is go pause and look at my husband and say, what do you need today? Call my dad and say, hey, Dad, do you need something? Even like my brother-in-law, he's moved in with us. And so now I'm in the habit of asking him, like, are you good, or do you need something? And actually, this is a conversation I had with my brother-in-law about a month ago. And he is like a very strong, good-looking Mexican. So there's a lot of already built-in pride there. And he broke down and sobbed and said, like, no one has ever asked me that.
Wow.
Yeah.
And he said, and I've never told anyone when I need something.
Yeah.
Well, then that kind of shifts my viewpoint of that. Then I guess it's individually based, right?
Well, looking at my family, coming from an Asian background, there's that pride there. Like my dad would not ask for help. he would not ask for help. My brothers also, just looking at my brothers now, both of them have had, depression and things like that. They don't ask for help unless I actually go and ask them, do you need anything? They still don't want to tell me. They still don't want to ask for help. And it's hard. And just with my husband recently, it was really hard. He had to ask for help for something. And I've never seen my husband felt like he just felt so much shame, and it is actually really hard for guys. I think maybe he's on par, maybe even a bit more, because of the guy is the breadwinner, the man of the house, that kind of label that's being put on them to be the provider. And for them to ask for help is actually even worse, because it means that they're not providing. They're not being strong
that's a
for the
whole
family.
other topic, right? Is this
Yeah.
this societal conditioning for both women and men, because we've both sexes have felt it. And so it is a very tough hurdle to start. It's an uphill battle, really. You're pushing a boulder uphill here, but this is how we start changing things, right? Is talking about it and getting it out there, being comfortable with asking for help and enforcing that it's okay to ask for help. Georgina, do you have anything?
Yes, and this is such an interesting topic, and I think it's just a wider reflection as well of how we are as a society. Like how many of us were raised with that notion of, if you work hard enough, you can achieve anything, you can do anything, and hard work is like that medal to wear. And obviously the people that don't work hard, they don't get the things, etc., which is just complete rubbish. That's not the case at all. But you look around in society now about and I think there's an issue of distribution of resources, and obviously distribution of wealth, that certain people are, they need more support, but they don't want to ask for support, because then the whole stereotypical accusations come into play about, oh, they're not contributing enough, they're not doing enough, etc. And I think that we really need to take a look at ourselves as a society and think about, it can't just be about the health of the individual. It can't just be about that. It can't just be about, if you've got the resources to thrive, then you're okay, and forget about everybody else, because we're a collective. Humanity is a collective.
There you go.
And we could solve everything. Everything could be solved if we would actually share things and take care of each other, and pass resources around and think about other people, because I don't feel good that in other parts of the world people are really suffering. That doesn't feel good. I want everyone to be in a situation where we can all thrive, or we can all enjoy what life on this planet could actually mean and could actually represent if we got our act together as a collective. And I think it's we've actually driven ourselves into a little corner by making it about individual success, because then it makes it down on the individual. But if you don't have the privilege, or if you don't have access to resources, then you're already on the back foot, and how are you supposed to get ahead? So we just have to start, we people that can do something. I think it's our time to step up and look at what we can do to solve some of these problems that exist, because we don't see ourselves as a community, as a human community. We don't see ourselves like that. That's not how nature behaves. Nature doesn't behave like that. Nature ensures that everything in the ecosystem is taken care of. As humans, we don't do that. We're separate, we're special, we're protected.
Look to the animals. There's packs of wolves. There's there's herds of sheep. That's what it is. So I just want to interrupt. There's a few people commenting. So Michelle Hurlbert says, instead, why don't we teach children how to read people and to trust their own instincts and intuition about them? Right? Robin Stone says, I think opening up conversation about community is the first step. Being brave to just start the conversation with family, friends, etc. Plant seeds, consider the benefits of tribal roots. Hunters, gatherers, all working together. We've lost that in society. Michelle, again, the men in my family are the same. They don't ask for help. Judy Schwingle says, agree. Men historically have had to achieve more and put in the extra efforts to attempt to get a similar rank. Maybe she meant women. I think women. To get a similar rank, women. Get a similar rank, promotion, and recognition. My husband's a strong, stoic German farmer who was taught to suck it up and just do the work. He never had a resource to lean on for help. So never understanding the option of asking for it. So these are all valid points. I mean, I don't know. Go ahead.
So, Georgina, what I was hearing when you were talking is that we have more than enough. So the problem isn't that there's lack. We have more than enough. The issue is about what we do with all the resources that we have. So this is the thing, okay? And I love Georgina because she'll be like, okay, so here's the thing. This is what has to change. So I want to talk about this because if we can't identify a next step, what's something that I've done in the past that I can do differently, guess what? The past becomes the future, right? It's just how it goes because we have so much momentum in this way of being, in this way of thinking. So just as an example, some conversations that Georgina and I had sparked some things for me. And you guys know that last month, I did something I'd never done in my business. So I've been in business for 13 years. My parents have been in business for over 40 years. My grandparents were in business. I never saw anyone do this that is in my family, but I knew it was time to change. And so I decided to create an offer that was just donation based. So that, and then it was interesting how uncomfortable that made people, right? Oh no, you can't do that. I'm very uncomfortable with that. Why did you do this to me, right? Well, because we have to shake up the way we're doing things. And then this next offer I did, I offered 4 different ways to pay. One was the pay in full. There was a couple of payment plans. And then one was you create your own arrangement. And I remember this lady reached out and she's like, create my own arrangement. What does that mean? I go, create your own arrangement. Like, think about where you are in your life. Think about what you want to create. Think about what resources you have access to or don't, and create your own arrangement. And this is the thing, Georgina, is that if we're going to do it differently, people have to start thinking differently, right? Oh no, just tell me what to do. Click the payment link. This is the amount, right? Everyone wants to be told what to do, but nobody wants to freaking think. We got to start putting our thinking caps on if we're going to circulate resources and if we're going to share what we have, right? I'm fine sharing what I know and sharing my time with people who can't pay for it. The interesting thing is how uncomfortable it's making them. So it's both sides. We have to change our behavior, right?
Yeah, that's how we start changing things. I mean, think outside the box. You're doing exactly that. This is something completely different that people aren't used to seeing and aren't used to participating in. And like you said, it's making them incredibly uncomfortable. So I just want to go back to some comments here. Tamron says, I have overcome asking for help and it has turned into my superpower. Plus, I have incredible stories of meeting people at very synchronistic moments. And those desperate moments have turned into beautiful, non-judgmental relationships. Real growth happened for me. It's my new way of living. Maria Diaz Coaching says, this is a fantastic conversation. Kelly Schwartz-Kevel says, yes. Maria says, I love this conversation. Creating your own arrangement offer. This is it. Georgina, do you want to jump in and talk to Monique's point?
Yeah, I mean, I love Monique's point. I think looking at different ways to do business is super, super potent and super powerful. And what it also encourages us to do, and this is definitely something I've been thinking a lot about recently, and Monique, this is something we've spoken about as well, is this notion that, a lot of us have skills that work online, for example, but what if you were to strip everything away and maybe the internet disappears or something? It's like, what skills do you tangibly have that could be useful in a community? And so like I'm in this period of flux for myself at the moment, thinking about, okay, what is it that I can actually offer that is really valuable, not just something I can charge money for, and not just something that I can create a problem and say, oh, look, this solves this problem. Like, what can I actually do that can actually empower people to solve some of the challenges we face as a collective? Because if we're not considering the challenge, this is what I believe, if we're not considering the challenges we face as a collective right now, which we're at the crossroads, do we choose the path of extinction or the path of evolution? Like, I think it's that clear. If we're not thinking as a collective, what can I do in my family, for myself, in my work, that is solving some of the problems that we face as a collective, then I'm adding to the problems rather than being part of the solution. And
Could
so,
we do that right now?
so again,
Could we each say right now what we could contribute or do, what skills we have if the internet went down in 30 minutes, because it can't go down right now. If the internet went down in 30 minutes, what role or activities or where would our gifts show up? What would our contribution be? So the internet
Yeah.
doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Business as we know it doesn't exist. So
Yeah, okay.
what do we
so
become?
I've obviously thought about this because we've had this conversation. My answer would be teaching. Like I was a teacher before I came online, so I have skills in education, and I would use those skills in education for empowering people to get introspective and learn how to use journaling as a tool to go within, to find their own voice, to remember who they are, know who they are. That's separate from what the external noise tells us to be. Like, who are you if you're not influenced by capitalism? Like, who are you if you're not influenced by marketing and influencers and celebrity culture? Like, who actually are you at that core? What did you come here to be in this lifetime? At this time, considering the global context we face, who are you now? What can you contribute? Who can you be? That is what I could offer in the local community.
Wow.
So
Kaki,
beautiful.
how about you?
Haven't thought of it, but as I was thinking, my skill sets come from really a lot of leadership, just in my past roles and everything. So I'll be the one standing there going, you need to do this. You're the person that needs to do this. That's your skill. I know people's skill sets. So I'm the one that will be like, okay, you're good at this. This is what you need to do. You're good at this and you need to do this. So that would be my role. And also really supporting people emotionally and mentally. That's another skill set that I have. So that would be what I'll be bringing to the table.
Monique?
I would become the village doctor. So I'm really good at healing with herbs and foods, and also with intention. So I'm very good at saying, okay, what are your symptoms? Okay, so here's a little echinacea for you. We're going to boil this flour. I'm going to do this. We're going to remove these foods. We're going to add these foods. And this is what I'm going to say to you. And I'm going to speak to your body and bring it into alignment. And so I would become the village doctor.
Okay.
Love that.
I love it.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Anyone have a sniffle this morning?
Well, I have to hear now. What would you
Monique's
suggest?
gotcha. Monique's gotcha.
I would
I think-
definitely be making you elderberry tea, Georgina. Oh, Georgina has a sniffle. I'm going to talk to you later. Okay, Brad, what about you?
I think I'm really good at, I think one of my superpowers is connecting people. So I think I would be connecting people and building that community. And also I love to cook. So I think creating meals to help with the community, to build up that community, to bring us together, to start as you mentioned off the top, sitting down and eating together. I think that's what I would be. My thing would be is to start to build that community and bring the people together. Everyone's loving what Georgina said. Right on, Georgina. Excellent point, Georgina. That is precisely what I was going to suggest. It is vital to realize that in addition to learning to ask for help, we have something unique to offer.
Yeah.
People are
And
loving the
that in
conversation.
itself, I think that in itself is a journey. And I think this is such a good time to start thinking about what is that unique gift you have to offer, because I've often found that that unique gift is something that you do so naturally and inherently and authentically that you don't actually realize it's a thing, because it's just so fundamentally who you are. And sometimes it can take other people to say to you, you're really, wow, did you know you would do this? Or you're really good at that. And you're like, well, yeah, but can't everyone do that? And they're like, no. So taking that time, and this is why introspection is so powerful and reflection is so powerful, taking that time to really get clear on, like, who are you? What inherent gifts did you come here with? Because I found that when we were able to use those gifts, when we are our most authentic self in community, it's just the most powerful thing, because it just feels so effortless and so natural. And that's not to say obviously there's loads of merit in cultivating skills and learning stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we've all got something that is just inherently who we are.
Unique
and often
to us, yeah.
It's the thing that we wouldn't necessarily want to charge for, or put a dollar or a pound price on, put a pound or a dollar on. And so this is why I think getting clearer, and I love what Monique is doing about looking at alternative ways for paying, because sometimes the skill isn't something that people have thought about paying for before.
Yeah.
So maybe there's other ways you can incorporate that or offer that.
That's so funny that you said it, because I literally had a conversation with a friend of mine last week about we were talking, and she said, you have a skill set of being able to hold space for people. And I thought, and she said, that's an incredibly powerful skill. And I said to her, but it's not, I don't see it that way, because it's exactly what you just said, Georgina. It's like, I don't think of it as a skill set because it's just something I naturally do. And she said, you would be surprised. There's not a lot of people that can hold space for people and actually hold that container of space for them and actually listen when they're talking. So you're right. It's just because I think it's just part of who we are, part of our DNA. We don't think of it as anything big, but I think you're right. I think we need to examine that and say, wait a minute. Yeah, I do have a skill set that's powerful and that's useful and can help people. And I think we need to celebrate those things too when we do discover them. And that's a whole other topic of discussion, is the whole celebration thing. But yeah, I mean, I don't think of it that way. And, I never thought about you bringing that question up, Monique, about, well, what would you provide? I was like, I've never thought about that before. I had to think really quickly on my feet here. What's my answer going to be? Holy shit. What have I got? So thank you for bringing that up in that prompt.
I got another question for you. How can we become what we just said right now before the internet goes out? How can we step into that role now? What would that look like?
And I think that's what we need to do. I actually think that's what we need to do, because I think whatever that gift is and that service is, or that offer is probably what we could be bringing anyway. And so we need more of that. We need more of services, skills, offers that actually are good for people's well-being and the ecological stability of our planet. We need more of those things, not necessarily just, I'm just accumulating more money. We need more of, what are we going to do with money in the future when there's no earth to live on? And I know that sounds really classic, but if you listen to the scientists, that's what they're telling us.
Well, here's the thing, right? Is we know that the way we're going is not sustainable. So why don't we go ahead and start behaving the way, there's all this talk about the new earth and this new way of being and the age of Aquarius. But so my question is when do we behave like that? Right. So we're still in old behavior.
Yeah.
And I believe that the change that needs to happen is going to come from grassroots change. It's going to come from individuals being we can't wait for the top-down approach, because governments, etc., have had so long to do things, and I know they're talking about things, but I don't know how much actual change is happening. But the more people that get on board with the small and it's just small things. It's things like, okay, don't buy fast fashion, buy secondhand clothes or share clothes, for example. It's can you grow your own food? Monique, I know I love talking to you about growing your own food, because I know you're really into that. But it's these small actions, cut down your consumption, don't buy stuff, etc.
Hang on. Sorry, Monique, I was going to ask you, can you share, because we talked about this exact thing when we did our pre-chat to decide about this. Can you share that bit that you shared with us of what you've started to do?
Yes. So there's a few things, and Georgina, she gets me all fired up. I have a hard time. So a few things, right? So I want everyone on here to consider, let's look at clothing and let's look at food. Let's just look at the stuff that we have. Let's look at stuff for a second. So, this is what I do a lot with my boys. So I'm actually in the midst of doing this because it started snowing yesterday. So I'm switching over closet stuff. So I'm bagging up the clothes and then I'm taking them. Okay, what boys do we know that are a size smaller, right? So that we're circulating the clothes. Same thing for them. I made the decision about 9 months ago that I wasn't going to go to the store and buy them 10 new pants and 10 new shirts, or 10 new shorts and 10 new shirts. I've actually taken them down, that they have 3-4 main outfits that they wear. And then when we're in the circulation, now I'm in the conversations with the moms where they would be the size smaller than that child, right? So how can we circulate clothes so we're not just constantly going and getting new ones, right? Because I know my kids, like they outgrow them so fast. It's actually total nonsense. It is just about me wanting to look good in the eyes of others, and that is it. If I go to the store and I buy them new clothes every time they need clothes, that's all it is. And we know that's nonsense. And then the other thing is like I had this dinner party, and the mom started talking, and one of the kids was really struggling with reading, and this other mom said, I'll give you this book set that completely changed our life. And this person was completely capable, had the financial resources to go buy the book set themselves. They could have went and bought it, but instead they accepted it and received it, because just the way that we're working this, like we have this homeschool community, is we're saying, yeah, let's pass books along. Let's pass our homeschooling materials, our books, our clothes, whatever it is, like let's circulate it, because it's not a matter of if I can afford it or if I have the money in the bank to buy it. It's like Georgina said, it's about thinking differently. We have to behave differently, right? Same thing as like before, this actually just happened yesterday or the day before. Derek needed, we call them railroad ties. It's like these big chunks of wood, because he needed to block off one area for trees and water and all this. And he told his brother, right? And then his brother went to work and asked everyone there. We had railroad ties within a day. Completely for free. Someone had railroad ties sitting in the back of their property. And so this is what we've gotten the habit of, is just asking our friends and family who has this, or we say, hey, like Derek did this, he the other day, he was like, we have a lot of apples and pears, who needs or wants apples and pears? So then we gave a bunch to a lady who makes stuff for the farmer's market. So what if well, this does require talking to people. I will admit, actual human beings that live around where we live, right?
Yeah.
So we have to start having conversations like that. I have this, who has that, right? This trading.
Barter system. We need to get back to the barter system. That's where it's at. Kaki, do you have anything? You've been pretty quiet today.
Yes, I am a little bit tired today, but yeah, I actually, with what Monique does with the clothing, some of my daughter's clothes have now, so they were passed down from my girlfriend to my oldest to my youngest, who's passing it to a girlfriend whose daughter is a size smaller, and who's passing it down to another girlfriend whose baby like is a lot younger. So just think of how much we save with the planet, like the resources we save, and yes, money, yes, I seriously do not buy clothes for my kids. it just comes in, but it's funny because what I find is in Asia culture, consumption is massive.
Right.
Like if you look at, anyone in Asia, they just love buying stuff. They wouldn't even think about this. Like, so for me, this is like growing up in Australia, I've learned to save the planet, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas in Asia, it's just totally like, what are you talking about? Why would you do that? They constantly buy new stuff. My auntie and uncles, they send stuff to my daughters, like brand new stuff. But I mean, they've got more than enough clothes. They've like got one body and they've got drawers full of clothes. It just doesn't make sense. And not just food and clothing. Let's talk about like energy, like turning off the lights. Those simple things, turning off the water, don't waste water. Those are things that we need to think about as well, because again, for me, growing up here, it's just normal to just turn off the light if you're not in the room. My father-in-law comes over from Hong Kong and he's like, why is the house so dark? So he's like going around like turning on all the lights, and my mother-in-law like, what is happening? So it's just those conversations, like we start here, but they're still like, how do we influence, like how do I influence my family? So that for me is like, how do I change their perceptions? Like, stop buying my kids clothes. I know you love them. Can we do something
That's not
else.
love, though. That's not
But
love.
yeah, I know, but to them, that's love.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, Cocky, I love this because, I mean, what? Christmas is around the corner, right? So what if we had conversations with all of our family members about, like, I just did this with my parents. I was like, listen, I'm gonna give you a tour. They have all the clothes they need. They have all the toys, games, books, everything you can imagine. I said, could we do something different this year? Could we focus on, you are gifting them experiences? So maybe you're going to take them to the hot springs. Maybe you're going to take them and you're going to have like a meal together, or you're going to, right? I'm going to haul the 5 puzzles that they have to your house and you guys are going to do a puzzle together, right? So I have this aunt and uncle. They're the most amazing aunt and uncle. And once a quarter, they host a Sam and Grant Day. And from 9 a.m. till 6 p.m., they plan a day that makes these boys feel so special. Now, there's no like gifts or like exterior stuff, right? They just think about like what they have around their property, their house, what are their favorite meals, what are their favorite games. And this is such a special memory for my boys. Like, they feel so important and so loved. And I know that they'll always talk about Sam and Grant days. I mean, they put up a sign on their gate. And so I'm actually trying to teach the rest of my family how to be like this aunt and uncle and go, listen, create Sam and Grant days versus going to the store, buying them something and putting it in a bag, because this is actually what's going to form their childhood. These are the memories and the time together that is most meaningful for them.
Well, let's look at it. You're talking about experiences. That's what we need to do, because if we go the other route, which is where we are right now, all of that shit, the stuff, it's not going with you. It's not the experiences, those stay with you right here in your memory. Sam and Grant will have these experiences for the rest of their lives to look back on. It's like, remember when Auntie and Uncle did this for us that day? And like, that's what we need to get back to. But I find it so funny too, because this is the exact stuff that I remember as a kid growing up. Like, my mom babysat 7, 8 kids in the neighborhood. And that wasn't even like, that was what the parents did. They dropped their kids off. I got to go to work. My mom was able to stay home for a little bit. So like, it's crazy, you know, like, we need to get back to that. How the hell have we gone so far the other way? And in addition, how do we get back to center? We don't want to go back so far, but let's get back to center. And as Kaki said, how do we start to change the minds or open the minds of the people? Like, how does that start? I know conversations have started, but how do we start to sway people's minds to think differently? How do we do that? I'm curious. I'm really asking, how do we start that? Like, how does that happen?
So for me, I think one thing that I've been trying is to broaden my my sense of who's in my community. So it's small things like, so if I go grocery shopping, I'll put something in the food bank donation, because it's like, okay, now I'm contributing to my community in that way. Or maybe you've heard of, there's an organization called Kiva, which offers loans to people in other countries. So you can support someone on Kiva, and then you're supporting someone in another country with their entrepreneurial project. So it's looking for like wealth redistribution opportunities. How can I donate some of my access into to people who are then distributing it to people that need it? And again, that's widening my connections with people. Like, I have these connections which, you know, my resources have been able to now to allow me to form just in those really small, simple ways. And I think the more we can see ourselves as this like global community where we're connected to everybody, because sometimes I think problems can feel so far away because geographically they're very distant from us. But then if we can kind of create these connections for ourselves in our own minds, it's like suddenly that person feels closer, or that part of the world feels closer, and I feel like I'm connected to that. Now I have an interest in what happens there.
Well,
so
also,
that's a small thing we can do.
Also, Georgina, I think that it's important that each of us realize, like, there's people within a 10-mile radius of where we are right now that don't have what we have, that are actually opening an empty cupboard, that don't have they don't have the choice if they want to turn the thermostat up or down. right? So this is one of the things that we do during the holidays, and it's really easy to do, right? So I'm sure everyone has this in their community. We have different trees, and there's one organization in particular, and they have a list of all of the kids they know that, they don't have a winter jacket. They don't have school supplies. I mean, we're talking about basic things, right? This child might not get anything other than what they're fed at school. And so you can take this child, they'll tell you what you can donate, you can go put together a package for a child. You can pick 1 kid, 5 kids, whatever you want, and you put together this package for them based on what their true needs are. The other thing that we have done is they have similar projects for people who don't have food for the holidays. So we'll go create a Thanksgiving or Christmas meal, put it in a box, and then we can drop it off. And so that family is going to have a meal, because I know when I go shopping for a Thanksgiving or Christmas meal, it costs me at least $500 worth of groceries, right? So there's people who wouldn't get that. So there's ways to look in your own community, find the organizations, start talking to people, and find the organizations that have identified the groups of people. Like I live on the edge of 4 Indian reservations, right? So we all have people in close proximity who need help right now. And so for me, it doesn't change my life dramatically if I donate 2 winter jackets to kids and their school supplies and a pair of shoes, right? It actually doesn't impact me at all in a negative way. No one's going to miss out on it. No one's going to know it's missing. But for those people, it hugely impacts them. And so that's what I would say, like, that's the first thing we can do. It's November and December. Can you do that, something like that for at least one individual?
You're right. It starts at that level. I have a neighbor across the street. I live in a townhouse complex. There's a neighbor across the street, and her mother's been in the hospital for 3 months now. And the daughter, she's by herself looking after the house and so on. And so she doesn't drive. And the other day she needed to get down to the hospital to see her mom. My wife gave her a lift down to the hospital, and my wife told her, if you need help, just ask. You have the neighbor beside you. You have us across the street. You have the one beside us, like beside myself and my wife. Just ask. We're more than willing to help. Because she said she has to work during the day. So when her mother does eventually come home, she needs help with her medication. And Mary said, Brad's right there. She gave her my number. Call him. He will come over and help. And I would gladly do it. As you all have said, as we've all said, this is where it starts, is right within our own communities. And then that ripples out to everybody else. That's what we need to do. That's where we need to start.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing, we talked about the person receiving. I was having a conversation with one of the parents at my daughter's school, and she doesn't have help here in Australia. So her and her husband haven't really gone on date nights, and I'm like, I'm more than happy to babysit, your kids and your baby, because her baby's so cute. And I've offered it quite a few times because she talks about it, but she's never taken up on my offer. So how do we then change the person that's going to receive it to be okay with receiving?
I knew Monique would have something for this.
Okay, so I can't shut up. Okay, so Cocky, tell me how you offered it. Exactly what did you say?
I said to her, if you ever want to go on a date night.
You ever want to go on a date night, right? Well, she freaking wants to go on a date night. So I had this situation with my brother. Okay, I have this awesome niece. Another girl. I finally get a girl in the house, right? For 2 years, I said that line that you just said. Yeah. Like, we'd love to have B come over if you guys ever just want a few hours to yourselves. But see, that's passive. That's passive. So it wasn't happening. So I was like, I got to change my approach because this isn't working. So one day I got really brave and I texted him. I said, Dylan, we are inviting B over on Friday from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. We're making a special breakfast and the boys have planned a special day of things. Would that work with your schedule? And he said, yes. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. And guess what? It's happened 2 times now. Like, instead of like, if you'd ever want to, just be like, listen, why don't you and your husband plan a date night for this Friday or next and bring the girls over? We're going to take care of the meals and everything. Which one do you prefer?
Okay, I'll try that.
There you go. See, we're all learning today. This is great.
Love that.
There's been a few comments here. Kelly Schwartz Kevel says the stuff, so much damn stuff circulating, material items as we are able. I love this. So beautiful, Monique. Give them experiences. Excellent, Michelle Hurlbert says. So the people are loving the conversation. This is great. It's getting them thinking. And this was the whole point of this, is to get people thinking. We've got 7 minutes left. So
Brad, can we talk about food for a second?
yeah, of course. Absolutely.
Okay. So the day is coming that we cannot rely on grocery stores for food, right? We cannot be that lazy in our thinking to go, well, I just go to the grocery store. That's where my food comes from.
Yeah.
So this is one thing that I'm really wanting to shift people on, is get to know at least one person in your community that grows food. Build a relationship with them, figure out what they grow, when they grow it, how you can support them, buy from them instead of your grocery store. So start doing swap outs, right? So I have a place where I could get raw milk and swap that out. I have a place I can get produce. I have a place, there's a guy who raises cattle. So I get my meat from him. So, and this is the cool thing that happens when you start meeting people who grow food and provide food, is you're going to get way higher quality food. You're going to get cheaper prices. And what you'll find is if you don't go to the grocery store, you don't buy processed junk that you actually shouldn't be eating, that your body doesn't know what to do with. So there's like a win-win in that. So that's something that I would love to encourage people to do. And if you need like a first good step, identify if you have a farmer's market and go support that and be a regular and build relationships. Because what I've learned is if I go and then I ask them for their phone number and then I do business outside of when the markets run, like I know my people, right? And then I also have built up my own food supply, right? So we have to have a plan outside the grocery store. This is so, so important. And I'm with Georgina, like most people don't want to think about when the shit could really hit the fan, but I'm telling you, you cannot be reliant on a grocery store. And the more prepared you are, like I'm prepared for my whole extended family. So I can feed my entire extended family for a couple of years based on what I have and based on what the relationships I have. Become that person for your family.
Yeah.
It's really, really important.
I don't know about you guys, but grocery stores here reported record high profits. Like it's insane. Sorry, Georgina, go ahead.
Well, it's the conversation that Monique has just dropped is, it's terrifying, right?
Yeah.
Because we're so accustomed to the fact that we don't have to worry about producing food anymore. It shows up in stores and we just go and pick up whatever we want, anytime, anything, even if it's not in season, it's in the shops. And I think this is one of our biggest problems as a collective, especially in like the Western world, where we've become so disconnected from actually the things that we need to survive. Like we need food to survive. We need a supply of healthy food to survive. And most people don't have access to that. We're reliant on these external systems. And I think if we don't get our act together as a collective, then we are going to, Monique's right, we are going to see challenges further down the line. So getting into the mindset now and this is why the local community building is so important. If we can start to build more self-sufficiency locally, start to acquire some of the skills that we've lost, cooking skills, gardening skills, food prep skills, all these things, then we actually have something to fall back on if some of the systems aren't able to support us anymore. And I think, well, on the one hand, it's scary, but on the other hand, it's actually really empowering, because how amazing to be in your back garden, if you have a back garden or an allotment or a space where you've got your fingers in the ground again and you're connecting with nature and you're remembering that you're part of this ecosystem, we're part of this incredible planet. And I think the more we remember and connect back with the essence of who we are, which is, yes, we may be a spiritual being, but we are actually also a physical body made of the earth. Like our body is of the earth. If we can rebuild and rekindle that connection, we'll respect the planet more. We won't do some of the crazy shit we're doing because we're like, I need nature. I think on the one hand, while it's really scary, on the other hand, some really magical things could happen from choosing to take that route.
Absolutely. I can remember being out west in Canada a couple of years ago, and they have community gardens. People have their own little area. Like, why don't we do that? Like, come on. It's simple. And everybody, and then you can trade, as you said, you could trade off food. I'm growing this, you're growing this. Let's trade. That's where it is. Okay, so we got 2 minutes. Let's go with closing thoughts. Kaki, let's start with you. Do you have anything you want to finish off with?
Yeah. As you guys were talking, one thing that really just came to mind was we need to start teaching our children this, really include our children in all of this. Yes, we can have the conversations, but they're the ones that are going to be living in the future world, whatever it's going to be like. So we really need to include our children. And I've brought my kids to, do clothes sorting at a, baby charity before. So just getting them to understand that they can be part of the community is so important, and that they can change the world.
Georgina?
I think my closing thought would be, it's time to start looking at community as relational rather than transactional. And by that, I mean, how can you build a community where, you generally care for each other and you're supporting each other, and it's not just about the financial transactions that happen between you, but actually how can you support each other and build a different way of being that promotes and focuses on human well-being and ecological stability over capital accumulation.
Beautiful. Monique?
So Brad, I want to ask your audience and the people who are watching to reach out to me for 3 things. So if you want to homeschool your kids and teach them the things that actually matter for the world that we're heading into, contact me. I do that. I've always done that, and I'm happy to help. If you want assistance in this whole food discussion, contact me. I'm happy to help you take practical steps to creating this for yourself and your family. And if you own a business and you want to change the way that you charge and the way you do your offers, reach out to me. I'm happy to support you in that.
Beautiful. Thank you all, especially my 3 lovely, beautiful guests, my wonderful friends, Kaki Lee, Georgina Morshdy, and Monique Alvarez. It has been an incredibly powerful conversation. I love this first conversation of this series of sessions. So thank you for making this what it was, what it is. And we're just going to continue to have these amazing conversations. We're going to do these every 2 weeks on Fridays. The time will change, obviously, depending upon the guests and time zones, etc. But I just want to say a huge thank you to the 3 of you for participating in the inaugural one. You guys made it so incredibly powerful and memorable. So thank you. I want to thank everyone who took the time out of their morning this morning to tune in with us, join us, all the comments and questions. Thank you all so very much. We'll see you in 2 weeks. And I hope you all have an amazing Friday and a beautiful weekend. Thank you all for tuning in, guys. I appreciate you all.
Thank you, Brad.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.